Hey everybody, it's me, the Light 479, aka Warren. Thank you for joining us today on our very first episode of Crafting with the Light. I'd like to give a special shout out to my nieces and nephews and my sweet little second cousin down in Florida. Today we're going to be looking at the sandcastle build, which is the difficulty level 1 maze and gym at the Elite Highway. This is actually the third structure I built, however it was the first gym completed, so that's why I'd like to start here. We're going to go over how I built the initial structure, and then we'll take a look at the maze and kind of see how I built that as well. As you can see, I'm using sand blocks as it is the sand castle, but I also use them in a lot of different type of builds because they drop down so you can fill areas in very quickly with these, and they're also very cost effective to break them back down with a shovel or something like that. Sorry, one of my bunnies or my chinchilla is digging in the background. That is a common occurrence. They like to craft with me. I often have to fly up high on one of my Pokemon in order to get an aerial view of the build because I am often building the structures from scratch right out of the water, so I like to get a layout from the air for what it's going to look like, and I also like to take a step back often to see how the entire look of the new build is on the highway. This was only the second structure in this area that I had built. I had the sky tower, which was my very first build, but that's a little bit further away, so I didn't have to take that one into consideration. But it took me a little while to really get the layout right and how the sandcastle looked next to the tree, and the position matters because when you're looking from the vantage point of the highway, I want it to look good as well as look good when you're up close to it. So a lot of factors to take into when building at this scale and building this large. You want to take an aerial view as well as a view from a further away point so you know how it's going to look. I also take into consideration nighttime and daytime as well. Something also you'll find out when you're epic crafting like I do, you often die easily. So there's many different types of ways you can prevent this, which I learned soon after building the sandcastle. My cousin Zio actually made me a set of armor just to prevent dying when you fall from a high place. Something else you'll notice for the sandcastle is I had to make a ton of glass. I made the entire maze out of glass as well as encased the entire underwater portion with glass. To do so, we put sand inside of the furnace along with coal as the fuel, and that's how you make glass, at least clear glass. You can add dyes to make colored glass as well. So what I did is I encased the entire underwater portion with glass first before hollowing it out, and that allowed me to not have to remove all the water with buckets. So now I'm hollowing it out, and you can see how quick and easy it is to do that with a shovel. And sometimes we have to switch to a pickaxe, and sometimes we miss some spots and we had to repair some flooding. For the maze portion, I encased the maze completely in glass to prevent you from being able to fly up to the top and cheating the entire maze. So I made glass tubes in essence, just tall enough to walk through. And this is quite detailed to do, not only because you need to be random when you're building a maze, but also just the materials themselves. Creating the glass was quite difficult, as I mentioned earlier. I had a lot of issues with being random and not predictable, and that's one of the hardest lessons I've learned with maze building, is staying different every single time. Every route in a maze is completely unique, just like every person is unique. So it's quite difficult, and maze building is quite fun. It's even more fun to watch people and see how they do. My cousin Zio tests out every maze before I let them open. That way I can ensure there's no breaks or anything like that, and he helps me troubleshoot them. You can see there's pitfalls in the mazes. Some of them make you die. In this maze, as it being easy, it just starts you underwater and you have to reset often, start from the beginning once again. This can happen repeatedly throughout the maze depending on what routes you take. In the more advanced mazes, you straight up die or get permanently stuck and have to respawn to start over, and that gets quite frustrating over time. But the name of the game is, these are elite mazes. They're not for the faint of heart. Well, this concludes the first episode of Epic Crafting with the Light 479. Please like and subscribe and tune in for more.